concealment will be totally obvious. And because it will be totally obvious, the hanor, the simcha, the joy and the ecstatic experience will then be possible. And we went into a whole shir, if you remember how we spoke a little bit about how everything that we do now in our group is in some way really parallels a pleasure that we will have in Olam Haba. That in essence, all the pleasureful experiences that we have now in our bodies are really based on yichud, even though we don't know it. If you recall, we went into this whole thing also. And we said that this state of Gil Yichud, which is the revelation of God's unity, the revelation of His presence, can be established. We got it down a little bit. Can be established through the efforts of man. If man is worthy, if he does mitzvahs, rather, well, what we said was that if man does mitzvahs, and we described the action of a mitzvah, that when a person does a mitzvah, essentially what he's doing is groping the conflict in himself about the existence of God or not. Behind everything that a person does, in many ways, is a revelation of what he thinks of himself in relationship to God's reality and truth. And what we said was that the performance of mitzvahs is an individual act of Gil Yichud. It's an individual act where the person literally brings the presence of God into himself, into his awareness and his consciousness. What that does, it gives all of the creation the power to begin to establish that state as well. If man does a sin, what that does is the reverse. It conceals God's presence in himself because he gives ascendancy to the individualistic, selfish feelings in himself, and it puts him against God, or in conflict with God as an absolute being. And what it does, it leads to a state, you see, of Hester Yichud, the concealment of that. Now this state is a very damaging state. This state is not the state of Olam Haba. This state leads to absolute destruction. You see. So essentially man has he has a choice. His objective is to establish the state of Gil Yichud in himself and then in the entire world. Man takes this world that we see here, which is called Olam Haba, and by keeping the mitzvahs, essentially what he does, he literally allows the construction of Olam Haba, for the future world, right here. Because whether we realize it or not, this world will not be this way all the time. There will come a time when this world will be a totally different place, where human experience will be a totally different kind of enterprise. Your entire awareness, who you are and what you are, will be completely different than it is now. And mitzvahs are an act of Gil Yichud. Internally. And what that does, that brings on the condition, the world, the universal condition of Gil Yichud. But if you do a chet, it is the internal act of Hester Yichud. And what you do is you bring on a universal state of Hester Yichud. This state cannot last. It is a state of reality, of creation, which is totally distant from the Bnei Shalom. Hence it cannot last. If this state comes in, then Satan, who is a Makapik, he accuses and he has the ability to wipe out or annihilate all of reality should this state materialize. These two options, you see, are all according to what's called the din or mishpat, the Hanogas HaMishpat. Hanogas HaMishpat says, we want you to create Olam Haba, we want you to create the future life, which is a life of pure knowledge and pure wisdom and pure truth. It is a time where your entire experience will understand the nature of the absolute will of God and His manifestation, and that will be your greatest simcha and your greatest joy. but man creates it on his own. This is what the Hanav Samishma says. You want Olam Haba? You got it. But you go build it. It's something which you must construct. And it's not a job which is not related to the reward. The reward is the effort. The reward is giving yichud. The effort is giving yichud. It's the same thing. Exactly what you do is exactly what you'll gain.
You mean the reward is according to the effort, not that it is the effort itself.
It's according to it, it's proportional to it, but it is the same process. The process of the work, of the job, is to be Megala Yichud in oneself. And as one does it, he's Megala Yichud in the entire world. So it's the same process, you see. Of course, it's proportional to it, but it's fundamentally the same thing, you see. It's not like, go do this A, and I'll give you B, where A and B are not related, except the fact that one gets paid for the other, you see. A and B, the job is exactly the same thing as the reward. The same thing. Both have the exact same process. Gili Yichud. I can't go into this even though some people have not been here. What Gili Yichud means? It sounds like, what is this big Gili Yichud, this revelation of God? Like, what is this all about? Why is it such a big deal? We've gone into this and we said that it's not the revelation of God which is the thing. The revelation of God is the greatest simcha which is possible for a human being. You may say, well, I don't experience that now. The answer is you do experience that now. Except that the revelation of God is in your body. That's what it is. Gili Yichud is not in your head now. It is in your body. Every time you run out for a good meal, every time you try and do something which gives you pleasure, that's Yichud. Except you can't recognize it. That's the whole thing. That is a manifestation of God. Because no pleasure can come from this world except if it comes from the Baruch Shem and His Koyach, His Kedusha. You see. It cannot, it's not possible. It is essentially the Kedusha or the holiness of the Baruch Shem which gives pleasure in the first place. No pleasurable experience is possible without that. Except that the nature of that pleasurable experience is constantly being transformed. God set aside that this pleasurable experience or His manifestation in two different forms. In the form of a guf, a body, or in the form where you can feel His power in the neshama. You see, right now we feel God in our body, except it's totally unrecognizable, because it looks like you feel it from yourself, for yourself, by yourself. But what we must realize is that it is actually the manifestation of the Baruch Shem through the body. His yichud, His koyach is in your body, and that's what gives you every type of pleasure imaginable. In Olam Haba, this pleasure will come from a direct contact with God. You see, it's a direct contact with the Baruch Shem, and because of that, it will be so tens of thousands of times more powerful than the greatest pleasure which you can conceive of now. You see, and it's not that God is going to create a new type of pleasure. No, it's the same thing you have now, except He's going to. It's like if you have to eat a banana through the peel. Okay. If you gotta eat a banana and you eat it through the peel, which is better? I'm not talking about nutrition-wise. Some people say the peel is better than the banana, but I'm talking about taste-wise. If I have you eat a banana alone or a banana with the peel, which one is the more enjoyable experience? Obviously, the banana with the peel. No. It's the same thing. The pleasure that you have from your body is the banana with the peel. You see. Now you're eating that, and you think, well, if that's all you've ever had, then you think, well, the banana tastes great. Tastes great with the peel. You see, because you don't know anything else. So, but suddenly, if you ever get a chance to eat a banana without a peel, let's say, for example, suddenly, someone gave you the banana without the peel, you say, wow, what have I been doing all the time? This is absurd. I'm eating a banana with a peel. How can you compare the banana without the peel and the banana with the peel? You see what I'm saying? That is the Hanoah of Olam Hazeh. Olam Hazeh, this world is the banana with the peel. This is the only thing you know. That's to you, that's because at least it's something. You see, it's better than eating a stone. You see. So you know what, a banana with a peel is much better than eating rocks. That's true. But a banana without the peel is much better than the banana with the peel. And that's it. It's really the same banana. See. You either eat it with the shell or without. Olam Hazeh with the guf is with the shell. Olam Haba is without the shell, but it's the same banana. You will someday recognize that it's really the same thing. You see, Our job, essentially, is to take off the peel. That's really what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, but that banana still has essence. The pure existence without essence.
What do you mean? No,
Is it just God itself, or it still has a
it still has a shell.
garment?
No, it still has a garment.
It
Yes.
shell.
No. It still has a shell. It's still yichud in its form, but it's a different form. But that form is equivalent to a banana without a peel. You see? No.
Then
This
you
one.
peel the
You
banana.
don't eat raw kedusha. You know, pure ruchnius. That's even God created the world so that every stage, this yichud or this kedusha is manifest in different shells. He said that we have the lowest shell, but the shell of Olam Haba is almost very minimal. It's like eating a pear with the thing. Well, you can always taste the pear with the thing, really. You see, or a tomato. Nobody peels a tomato, even though it has a slight covering. It has a covering on the enclosure. Okay. That's the relationship of Olam Haba and Olam Haba. You create that relationship because your job is to open up this yichud. You open up the yichud if you open it up in yourself. If you are able to establish the correct position with you and the Banasham in terms of who you are and what you are and who God is, and realize that your will should be subservient to His, you then bring His presence in. That allows this happens to the entire world itself. How it happens is a couple of tapes further. When we get into the whole concept of Kriyas HaMeisim and how Olam Haba is literally created. We will go into the details of that. But just know the concept. Okay. If you do a chait, essentially what you do is you take that banana with a peel and you cover it with a double peel. That is the effect of a chait. And this metaphor which I'm giving you is much more precise than it would appear, because you are doing that. You're taking what's called a chason and you're adding a zoyam or a tumah on top of it. It's like a double thing, but we'll get into that later on. But you literally encase it in a box. So now what you do is you eat the banana through the peel and wrapped in paper, let's say. You see? That's really what it is now. And that world is so far away from the actual banana that it doesn't pay to keep this anymore. The Malchamoris ones up, the Sutton ones up, the Buddhist ones, hey, this is not what you wanted. The guy got paper around the bananas already. This is not, So the Buddhist says away with the fruit market. That's it. Essentially, in using this mushal. But, all this is according to the criteria of din, justice, mishpat, you see. And if you give a person free will, he can either destroy or construct. Enter the Hanogas HaYichud. And what the Hanogas HaYichud does, you see, is allow the world to go into a state of Hester, you see. And from the Hester itself, he brings the Giloi. This is a remarkable thing. It's an incredible thing how it's possible. But that's what it is. That's what the Hanogas HaYichud is. And that's why it's called Hanogas HaYichud. Yichud means, Hanogas HaMishpat means that the Hanoga, its objective is Mishpat, justice. It means you gain what you've earned, and that's it. Yichud means that the sole objective is to establish this, no matter what happens. No matter if you do it through mitzvot or through chatoyim. In either way, you will establish the state of Yichud. Does anyone know if Neil is coming tonight? Yeah? Which is, how does that work? Okay? How are we able to bring light from darkness? And before we go into that, I just want to go into some sukkim, some areas in the Torah which show what I'm saying is to be true. You see. Some of you may say, well, where does he know this from? This sounds like a strange idea. Where do you see this in the davening? But where do you see this in the Torah? Such an idea. You see it in many places. For example, no one has a siddur around here. Does anyone have a siddur? No. Anyone can have a siddur? The book that we say at the end of Meir, for example, if you're familiar, Baruch Atah Hashem, God is Israel. Blessed be God who redeems Israel. But if you read the whole thing, which has to do with redemption, essentially it says very openly, it I'll read the Hebrew and then I'll read the English quickly. Kifota Hashem es Yaakov u'go'oloi miyat chazok b'menu v'ruchato Hashem go'an Yisrael. Say the end of Ma'ariv, and essentially what it says, that the Baruch Shalom liberates, he redeems Yaakov from a hand which is mightier, which is stronger than Yaakov. It says that the Baruch Shalom will redeem Yaakov. Who's Yaakov? Yaakov means Israel. From that which is stronger than Israel. Blessed be the Baruch Shalom who redeems Israel. Now the question is, what do you mean? It says here, it's talking about the redemption. And it says over there that the Baruch Shalom is going to redeem Israel from that which is stronger than Israel. What does that mean, he's going to redeem from that which is stronger? What is stronger than Israel? What is stronger than Yaakov? What does that mean? Does that mean there's an enemy? What it means that the Baruch Shalom will redeem Yaakov from that which is even stronger, even that which he cannot undo. In other words, even the normal conditions that Yaakov would have to succumb, you see, from the adversary, the Baruch Shalom will save him from the adversary. What adversaries are we talking about? Hate. The Baruch Shalom will redeem Klal Yisrael, even though they are Rishoyim, even though they are immersed in Chatoyim, which is stronger than them. Why is it stronger? Because when you do a Chet, the Satan runs up and says, this man should be annihilated. He doesn't deserve anything. He has done Chatoyim. His life is filled with Chatoyim. What is he doing in Olam Haba? He has created a situation of testing Yichud. You see, what is he doing in Olam Haba? What connection could he have with Olam Haba? So the Baruch Shalom says, I will redeem Klal Yisrael, even from that which is stronger, even if they are immersed in Chatoyim. Miyat chazok b'menu, I will redeem them. From Olam Hazeh, and bring them to Olam Haba. You see, many areas, but probably one of the most clear areas that you see is in Hallel. In the end of Mina Mesa, it says the following. Hallel is talking about the ultimate redemption. Well, you know that it talks about every time the Jews are saved, but Hallel is talking about really the ultimate redemption. And what it says is the following. I thank you, that's the first pasuk. Then there's Eben Mo'asu Haboinim Hoyzol Roish Piyena Me'is Hashem Hoyzol Zois Yimiflois Beinenu and there Yom Os Hashem Nogidu Vadis Mechavo. Now, translated, it goes like this. We always say this at the end of Hallel, and we say this.
Why don't you say it twice?
Oh, this is a different thing, but let me just go to the book myself. What does it say the following? I thank you, God, for you have answered me, and you have been my deliverance. That's the first part. The second one is, the stone which the builders scorned became the cornerstone, the headstone. Okay? And then the third one is, this must be God's doing. It is a marvel in our eyes. And the final one is, this day was made by God, let us exult and rejoice in it. Or in Him. What are these psukim really talking about? These psukim are talking about the most incredible phenomena that the whole world has ever seen. What do we mean? It says, I thank you, God, because you have answered me and you have been my deliverance. The better way to read it, the Vilna Gaon says, is the following. It's a play on the words Batahi. It says, I thank you, God, because you have afflicted me, Batahi, and you have been my deliverance. The way that it really is supposed to read is the following. I thank you, God, because you have afflicted me, and the affliction, it has been my deliverance. In other words, the affliction itself that you have given me, in itself has been my deliverance. What affliction? The darkness. The darkness which has come from my chatoim, my sins, That darkness has been my redemption, my deliverance. Even more so Aboinum, the stone which was despised by the builders, the one that they looked at the brick or the stone which they said, this is the worst stone of all. This stone has become the chief stone. This is a tremendous marvel. This must be from God. It is a wonder in our eyes. What is it talking about? What is essentially saying is the following. It's hard to read the English because you don't have a glance of Hebrew, so it's hard to capture the actual what it's saying. But it's saying the following. I thank you, O God. Why? Because the afflictions that you have given me, they have been my deliverance. So that which was scorned, that which was the lowest thing of all, has suddenly reached the top. And this is an incredible marvel that must have come from God. How does that read? What do we mean by that? Well, we say these psukim are the following, and listen very carefully. We see to God that I have been afflicted, but it's not you who have delivered me, it's the affliction itself which has delivered me. The fact that my sins have created a darkness around me, this darkness has produced a being which is very low and very inferior, obviously. But the amazing thing, that out of this darkness itself, that from the darkness itself, which was the result of my chet, which should have made me look like an absolutely inferior being, suddenly, this thing which was despised by everyone, this has become the top cornerstone. You see, that which was in total darkness has now come with total light. This must be from God. You see, that's what the psukim are saying. What is it talking about? It's talking about essentially the Jews. And it's the following. That when the Jews have done sins, when Christ have done sins over and over again, throughout one generation to another, what did God do? God constantly punished them. He put them into Galus, into exile, and He punished them. They've been downtrodden under the heels of almost every Goyish nation, every Gentile nation. And all the Gentiles look at the Jews and say, you are the lowest. You have no power, you have no glory, you have nothing. Throughout time, you have always been under our heel. You see. And what the Pasuk says is that, on the contrary, this is exactly what has saved the Jews. It is the fact that the Jews were in exile. It is because of the fact that the Jews have been in total darkness. It is because of the fact that the Jews have been subjugated, you see, and controlled by every Gentile nation. That's what exactly has saved them, and which now allows them to eventually become the chief of all the nations. And this thing, that the lowest can suddenly become the highest, is the most spectacular miracle that God can do. Only God can do that. Only God can take that which is the lowest and bring them to the highest. You see? Or rather, even deeper. It's not that God takes the lowest. It's not that God takes the lowest and brings it to the highest. That's the minimal miracle. What it really means is that God is able to bring something to the highest because it was at the lowest. That's the subtlety. Do you grasp what I'm saying? What those psukim are saying, it's not that God has taken that which was the lowest and made it to the highest. He saved it. How did God save it? God saved the Jews because He made them the lowest. That is their redemption. By being the lowest nation of all. You see, by being in darkness, by destroying the temple, by throwing them out of the land of Israel, putting them into an exile for 2,000 years. That is what has saved the Jews. Being the lowest was exactly the instrument of their redemption. And because they were the lowest for 2,000 years, now they can be the highest. So you may say, well, what kind of instrument of redemption that is? That is the redemption of the Hanhagas HaYichud. You see, if the Jews would have done mitzvahs, and they would have been tzaddikim, and they would have done what God said, they would have brought the redemption by their own efforts. They would have been the highest at the beginning, and they would have been the highest at the end. Because they would have brought the redemption as tzaddikim, as righteous people, you see. Hence they would never have been in an inferior position. They would have always retained their superior status. But what happens if the Jews don't do that? What happens if they do Khatayim? Then the Sultan runs up and says, you must annihilate them. You must destroy them. So what does God do? God does not destroy them. What he does, he simply takes them and he puts them in the inferior position. And by them remaining in the inferior position, they are able to survive. Without being in that inferior position, their Khatayim would have destroyed them. You see, because the din or the justice would have demanded annihilation. How does God save them? He saves them by keeping them in a position of Hesed Yichud, or by keeping them in a position of what? Of concealment, of suffering. You see, being subjugated by the nations and so on, being the bottom, that allows them to survive, and the Sultan lifts and go. And eventually that type of condition brings them ultimately to such a way where it removes the effect of the hate. And then instantly when it's removed finally, they suddenly jump up to the highest. So what we see is it's from the darkness that the light eventually comes if the Jews choose the path of hate. That is the Hanagas HaYichud working. And that's what the Pasuk says. That the ability to take something which is the lowest and bring it to the highest is an extraordinary thing. But the ability to bring something to the highest by first making it the lowest, by the fact that it's in the lowest position, is a sine qua non or a prerequisite for it to be the highest. By creating light from absolute darkness, can only have come from God. This is the Hanagas HaYichud. This is the ultimate stamp of God's ability. In the sense that God is able to take total evil, and from the evil itself comes the good, or from the light. Judaism is the only religion which sees it clearly. From the beginning of time, man has had a tremendous problem dealing with good and evil. The contrast has been very hard to deal with all the time. When you look at good events and bad events, the inclination is to say, well, there must be two powers, or two gods. Because how can one God do both good and evil? They're two opposites. The answer was, the way Judaism sees, is that they really come from one God. Because even the evil that we think is there is itself a redemptive process. But it's only a redemptive process if we force that process to govern us. We have the choice. We can either bring the future life, the future ultimate existence, through our good deeds. In that case, God does not employ evil to save us. We have saved ourselves through justice, through din, because of what we deserve. But if we do Khatayim, if we ignore the spirituality, if we run after our bodies and immerse ourselves into that, we force God to go a different path. We force God to then to use Hester. We force God to use what we have created to redeem us. We have created what? Concealment. We have created distance from God. So God then must use concealment to redeem us. He must use that which we have given Him to redeem us. But that's an incredible miracle. How can you use absolute evil to bring absolute good? Only the Lord of both, who sees the inner nature of both, can do that. That is the signature of God. Do we understand this? So if you want to know where this information is, it's all over the Siddur, except you don't recognize it. Yes?
Is the Holocaust one of the ways he worked?
The Holocaust was the most significant way that has ever been done. Too late, it's 8 o'clock. Yes.
Yeah, but was it absolute evil? There was no absolute darkness. There were always great sadness, great pure within the nation.
What happened in the Holocaust, and very briefly, is obviously there had come a point when the Kippur was very powerful, and the Bolshevik wanted to bring the redemption much quicker. What's that? The Kippur, the accusation against the Jews. I will go into this in much more detail in Series 3, when we go into the intricate nature of the Holocaust itself. It's a very deep thing. But obviously, when you look at the Holocaust, which was a mindless evil, I mean, if you know what happened in Nazi Germany in the 40s, the early 40s, it's unbelievable that such a thing can even be. I mean, talk to any Jew who's gone to the Holocaust. we can have no idea what it was like to live from 1935, 1939 to 1945. Who? Go to Shoah. Yes. The question that's always put, where did this come from? You see. Now, could Hitler have done anything if God didn't consent? Of course not. Absolutely nothing. Obviously, you see, the whole purpose of the Holocaust was to deal with the Jews. In fact, it was an incredible thing with the Holocaust. Because Hitler himself, toward the end of the war, they said to Hitler, what are you doing? We need these trains. Hitler was taking the trains and the rail systems to transport the Jews to the concentration camps. And his general said that you're taking away the trains that we need, to transport supplies to the front. So Hitler says, I don't care. It is the Jews that we must deal with. It's an amazing thing. It's like Hitler knew in his own mind what his ultimate purpose was. He was like a machine that was driven. He knew that it's more important to annihilate the Jews than to win the war. And the generals could not understand it. He was driven by a task which is really higher than him. Sounds strange. The man was an absolute animal, but in a way it was higher than him, that task. He was driven because that was decreed. He was the agent to follow the decree of God himself. There was no way that Hitler could do a thing. Hitler could not raise his hand if God did not consent. How can he then go kill 6 million Jews? The Holocaust was the decree of God. But where does such a decree come from? Why would a people merit such an intense destruction? There are a number of reasons for that, and I don't want to go into the full thing. But one of the things is that there were aspects of the Jews that deserve that. You may say, what can a person do to deserve that? You will be astounded. I will tell you what you can do to deserve that. And you will think, you will realize the enormity of what your power is. That you can do things literally to deserve that kind of end. You can't. It's not for now to go into that. We will go into this relatively shortly, what kind of thing that is. But more than that, the intensity of that kind of experience was also an acceleration for the ultimate redemption. Because if you'll notice, what happened right after the Holocaust? The most important thing that happened was the beginning of the acquisition of Israel. It was the return of many Jews. It's like the beginning of the ultimate redemption starting. You see, the Jews were supposed to be in Egypt for 410 years, for 400 years. But they were only in Egypt for 210 years. In order for God to shorten the years, what he did was, he accelerated the process. He accelerated by making it much more difficult the last 80 years. Because the Jews only knew real servitude in the last 80 years. For the first 130 years or so, the Jews were not slaves. They just began to lose their freedom. You see, Paro took away one freedom after another, but the Jews were never slaves until the last 80 years. That's when they really began to do the backbiting work. And it became rougher and rougher. Why is that? Because many times, in order for God to bring a redemption, he makes it more difficult right towards the end, you see, so that he can accelerate the process. But why must he accelerate the process using the instrument of evil? Because we have demanded that instrument. We have said to God, we need that instrument. Why? Because of our chatonim. Yehoiakim doesn't have to go that way. He doesn't have to put us down to the bottom to redeem us. He doesn't want to do that way. Do you think he wants to do that? Do you have any idea? If God can feel, and he can't, that's the way we feel. He's not subject to feeling. God's beyond that. But if God can experience human emotion, which is absolutely impossible, can you imagine the pain of what he must feel to take that which is created and destroy it? If you had to kill your children, how would you feel? Could you imagine the agony of that? Well, that's exactly what God has to do, isn't it? God has to take that which he created and destroy it. If God were human, can you have to begin to understand the pain that he must have to do what he says has to do? We always talk about the pain of humans and the pain of what the people felt in the Holocaust. Nobody thinks about the pain of God, really. The things to think about. You see, God doesn't have pain, you see. But there's an aspect that the Rebbeinu Shalom is forced to do this, to save his own children. Why? To deal with hate. You do not know the power of hate, or the power of conflicting with God and distancing yourself from Him. Because that brings the world with ultimate destruction. In order for God to save that ultimate annihilation, He must redeem us through pain, which comes from evil, an evil force. Are there any questions? Yes.
Is this only for Jews, or is this through the process of going through?
Essentially, the process is primarily for Jews, but it also exists for Gentiles on a much lower level. But in order to understand that, we have to understand why there are such a thing as Gentiles, who is a Gentile, and why has mankind been divided into Jews and Gentiles? Adam Rishon, the first man, was he Jewish or was he Goy? What was Noach? Was he Jewish or was he a Goy? What? Well, technically speaking, they were Jewish, but they were not Jewish, because to be a Jew was a whole different concept in those days. Technically speaking, it was a different thing, but we will go into that later on. But you must understand the difference between a Jew and a Goy to understand how these things. In Series 3, we will discuss this whole thing. It will take 3 months. And by the time we'll finish, you will understand the difference between a Jew and a Goy throughout history, in all different qualities. How each one relates to Hanagas HaMishpat, to Hanagas HaYichud, and so on, and how all of human history has always been determined by this. But you've got to have much more information to really appreciate that. You understand this, I think, yes? Well, okay.
80 years each
No, it was 210 years, but the 80 was, yeah, the 80 actually doubled, began to accelerate now. Yeah. The 112, no.
Wait, whatever. The 80 is
Yes,
that
the last.
Stuff between them and the Steris between
Yes,
them.
I thought of it.
So
It's not exactly, it's not exactly good, it's deeper than that, because it started from Yitzchak, it's much deeper than that. But essentially,
I understand.
it was an acceleration. Yes.
So from 39 to 45 could have been an acceleration.
Yes.
Consolidation
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
of like 200 years. So in terms of Steris, we could be much
Yes.
closer to 22.
If you'll notice, just to elaborate, you ever notice an interesting thing? If you look at God's creation, right? If you look at God's creation itself, you look at the universe. You ever look at the numbers of the universe? For example, how big is the universe? Look at a number that is, or how many atoms in the universe, or how small is an atom? How much? If you ever look, what is the power of the sun? The numbers that you talk about when you talk about normal physics, chemistry, and biology are incredible. Everything is 10 to the umpteenth or 10 to the minus umpteenth. You ever notice the figures in physics? You ever see a figure in physics which is less than 10 to the 6th or to the 8th? I mean, really? You ever notice that? You see what I'm saying? When you look at God's handiwork, everything is 10 to a large number, you see. But the interesting thing is when you look at the age of the universe, it's only 5,746 years. That is the real age. What is 5,746 years as a regular number when you think of everything else? You see. Forget about the fact that they say the universe is 4 billion years, or 10 billion years, and so on. The essential answer to that is, and I'll just give it briefly, is that when the world was created, you see, when the first man was created, was he created as a little baby? No. He wasn't, because he had no parents. When God made Adam, how old was Adam? He was 20. He wasn't 20, he was just made. He had the body. No, what? Adam didn't have to vote. What's that? Anyway, he was the equivalent to 20. What do you mean? He had the body. He had the physical and the emotional, mental maturity of a 20-year-old for his time. Okay, that's what he was. And he was made like that. Just like Adam was created an adult, the universe was created as an adult. In other words, the universe wasn't created in a primeval form and allowed to develop. Just like Adam wasn't. The world is created as if it had already been 2 billion years old. You see, it's a deception, really. It's an enormous deception, you see. The actual age of the earth is 5,746. Because the thing is, what the Gemara tells us, the Torah tells us, is that from Adam Rishon until the end of time cannot be more than 6,000 years. Let me say this now, and let you remember this. The world will not go beyond the year 6,000. That is what the Torah says. It will not go beyond. That means that the Yemot Mashiach must start before the year 6,000. It is 5,746 years. We have 254 years. The world will end in 254 years. It cannot go beyond that. What does it mean will end? It means the Yemot Mashiach must have started before that, and Yom Adin and Olam Haba will have started after that. Now that's not much of a consolation to us. You know, well, that's what it is. You see. If we can look at historical events now, we can see it moving more and more quicker and quicker to the ultimate times of Mashiach. Really.
You mean it might get worse like the 80 years to the very end that lasting?
Well, it's been worse. The Holocaust was like the 80 years in the Mitzrayim. That was like that's called the Chevron Mashiach. But we'll get that's series 4. That's 13 pages all on the concept of Mashiach. That's an exhaustive study. We won't tackle it now, but essentially that's what it is. But if you ever know interesting things, wait a minute, you ever know interesting things, why is it that all the numbers that we play with when we talk about the universe is everything 10 to the what? To the umpteenth power, but when you talk about the age of the world, it's only like 5,746. It's like a nothing. It's like a minuscule. Why is that? Why 6,000 years? Why is, whatever God does, He does in grandiose fashion. But when it comes to the age of the world, how long the world has to go in terms of its darker prophecies, God says 6,000 years is enough for me.
So carbon dating is all in the loop.
No, that's never. There are many fallacies to that. We can go into a whole thing on that, but that's something else. I'm not going to spend some time on that and give a share on that. That's totally fallacious. The whole thing, there's so many premises that they assume. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a tremendous hope. An incredible deception they try and put over the carbon dating and the evolution, all these things. But that's something else. Well, that's a separate thing. But the point that we're trying to examine is, why is that? Why is that the age of the world is only 6,000 years? God is satisfied with this little number. You know what? Like they say, like for example, when did the Cro-Magnon man live? Well, the first hominids, they say started 2 million years ago. Well, the truth is, 2 million years sounds like a better figure, doesn't it? Really. You know, the Torah says that's not true. But if you really look at everything else, all the other magnitudes, 2 million sounds good. Really. 6,000 years? What's the answer to that? What do you think the answer to that is? I'm going to throw this one to the floor.
Maybe that's like our lifespan in terms of Olam Haba or the next world is so small that it's like we act in a short time and we get something quite fantastic, something much greater. Maybe to give a sense of that proportion.
So why would it be so small? The Olam Haba is like forever.
Right.
But that sounds like a nice grandiose figure.
It's like a parallel to that.
But why? Well, why is it a small power? That's the question. Why is it so minuscule? Why?
Can't you ask the same question of why is our life so short? Why is it
Who?
Why are our lives only so short?
That's the same question. It is the same question.
Isn't it short as it appears to us as 6,000 years, or would the first 1,000
No,
possibly...
6,000.
You once said something about some of the early guys who lived 900 years or so.
It is 900 years.
Time was different.
Yeah. Well, their sense of life was different, that's true. But human history will not take place more than 6,000 years. You know, you don't realize, it's an amazing thing when you really think of it. If you follow the years back, you know that Avram he saw Noach. You don't think of it because you think when you learn the Chumash, there was the creation, then there was Noach, and the flood was there, and then there was Avram, so you figure Noach died. But the truth of the matter is, Avram, I think he was a young man when Noach died. He saw Noach. He didn't have to read a book about the flood. He went over to the man himself. You know that? And Noach was not that many years after Adam. Adam lived 930 years. I mean, most people saw Adam. You see? 20% of human history saw Adam Rishon. You know? strange thing? Think of it. 20% of human history, Adam lived. Adam lived to about 20% of human history.
What they say now is what they say.
Okay.
Very changed.
But it's an amazing thing, you see. And so on.
So Adam studied directly with Noah.
Yaakov was learning with one of the sons of Noah, Shem. Shem lived up to the time of Yaakov. So when we find it, we find that humanity is not as large as we really think it is. The answer to this question is that it's deceiving question. It's very deceptive. There is really an answer here. I have fooled you. Yes. How? Oh, you want to ask the question? Yeah. Who? This thing, let me bring up this aspect. This thing is really let me say it now. There's really a very important question that you really have to ask. Nobody has asked it, but it has to do with what you just said. What you said makes absolutely no sense. Do you know why? Why? Why does it make absolutely no sense? Why don't you think? What did you just say? You just said, well, what did you just say?
We have sugar on which to earn the good.
Right. Does that make sense? How can you earn eternity in 70 years? Who's getting cheated? You or God?
The push.
Who? No, who's getting cheated?
You get to come back
God
more
getting
time.
cheated. How can the Bible says, wait a minute, how long does the guy live? 70? Let's say a guy lived 150 years. Let's say he lived 1,000 years. I don't care. Give him 1,000 years. The Bunchen comes over and says, you want to earn a marble? I give you 1,000 years to earn a marble. Right? Year for year. Okay, I feel good today. I give you 5,000 years to earn a marble. I feel better. I give you 100,000 years to earn a marble. Okay, for 1,000 years of work. For what's 1,000 years of work for 100,000 years? How long is Olam Haba? Olam Haba. You want to know how long Olam Haba is? Imagine a scene, okay? Imagine a scene 50 trillion years from now. That's a long time. Or even better, 100 quadrillion years. That's like one with like 18 zeros after. My God, that's a long time. That's more than all the atoms in the universe. You see, and two people are sitting at a table and they're talking in Olam Haba, and one says to the other, you know, there seems to be a rumor, a very vague rumor, that there was once an existence where we were confined in some kind of a body? What? Do you remember anything like that? There was one situation where there was something called a Jew and a Goy. Do you remember anything like that? Or there was once, a long time ago, some existence where we were involved in strange types of activities? And the other guy said, I don't remember anything like that. Well, here in the ancient legend, what? Yeah, there's some rumor that long time ago, the world was different. Do you remember that? No, I don't remember it. You can begin to see the distance of Olam Haba. And that's only what? 100 quadrillion years? That's nothing to Olam Haba. Nothing. Olam Haba just started. Really? Well, if you really think of that, if that's true, how can you get such a vast quantity of time for 70 years of work? Who is being railroaded?
There is no time.
You can't compare time to those people that way.
You see the question? Why? Because if the world is run by what leader? Hanovis HaMishpat. It's run by Din. How does Din allow the exchange? You see? It's like I come over to you and I say, excuse me, do you have change of a quarter? Yes. Here, take $1 million bill. Keep the change. That's what it is. That's like absurd. Well, how does Din allow that kind of exchange? I can understand a Chesed allows that exchange. Your Baal Machmanis, you allow that exchange. But if you're a Din doesn't allow that exchange. Din is very strict, very severe. You see, how does it allow this kind of exchange? You hear the question? Yeah, no one ever thinks about that. Well, why should we think about that? It's not our problem. Obviously, right?
Why should men change?
You know, I say people in glass houses, what is it? You don't look a gift horse in the mouth, or something like that.
Why do we always think how hard it is? The point is what we're getting shows the price.
Yeah, well, how hard you have to work in this nest, exactly.
Well, why should man change in the future if he hasn't changed from the past to the present?
But he has changed in the past many times. But in Adam Haba, we won't be the same. Remember we talk about the banana within our appeal? All of reality will be absolutely different, totally different. See? Adam Haba was a completely different place than Adam Hazer. It's our place, without any peels. It's pure yichud. Really what it is. I mean, you can't feel it. What? They're peeling. Now Adam Haba is very peeling. Or really very non-peeling. Anyway, how do we answer? That's a very difficult question to answer. I've never seen it asked. I don't know why. I don't know why. What?
Not say 37.
Now, the answer to this is really in series. The answer is three. But I'm going to answer it now. I'm going to answer it now. At least, I'm going to try to answer it now or setting a proposed solution. Because the truth of the matter is, the exchange of Olam Haba for your 70 years, your 70 years is not, it's not you do a job for 70 years, you get an infinite amount of time. That's not what it is. It's not a trade-off in years. If it was a trade-off in years, you wouldn't do that. Din wouldn't allow that. What it is something else. When you come to a mitzvah or a chet, you come in front of you and you say, I don't know, should I do it or should I not? Right? So you start thinking. For example, you're very hungry, whatever the story is, you have a possibility of eating some trace of food, real good food, and you want to know if you should do it or not. So you're thinking, let's see, I'm really hungry, I'm very hungry, and I'm starving, and this looks really great, you know? But at the same time, I know that it's not, you're not allowed to do this. I mean, I'm a Jew, I'm a film Jew, and I know I keep the Torah, I know the British doesn't want me to do it. He doesn't want me to do that. What should I do? Wait a minute, who is this God? Where does he tell me? Where is he? Well, I have leave Matan Torah this and that. Then the other side says, do you see God? Did he really tell you this? Well, the truth is I don't see him. I don't see him from any senses, and so on. So then, wait a minute. What am I really listening to? You see. I should listen to God? Or not? Essentially, what do you do if you listen to God or not? What is the trade-off? You think to yourself, wait a minute, do I know if I'll be alive 5 seconds from now? No. I don't know how I'll be alive. So right now, when I'm in the middle of this choice, I am literally literally doing what? I am being forced to choose in terms of what will be my next step of existence. Because I don't know what's going to be with me 20 seconds from now. So when I decide whether or not to do it or not, I have to decide what will be the nature of my existence in the next 20 seconds. You see. Why? Because I don't know about the Bonishim. I don't see an Olam Haba. It's not in front of my eyes. I don't know what will be. It's an absolute mystery to me. You see. So I'm being asked to give up something now for something later. You see. But that which is later is not clearly seen. It's believed, it's understood, let's say, but it's not seen, and I'm being asked to give that up for something which is seen and felt and needed now. You see. And what am I being asked to give up? What's the trade-off? I'm being asked to give up what? My existence for the thing. Because the truth of the matter is, let's say Chas v'Shalom, the guy died 20 seconds. He would have given up the ability to live the way he wanted for those 20 seconds. He would have given up the ability to what? To determine the course of his existence. From second to second. Because that's what it is. Since there's no guarantee on life at all, every time you choose a certain way, you are literally determining the next second of your existence. That's the trade-off. What the Bonishim says, since you have given me your existence, I will give you existence. But is existence time? Does it have time to it? No. Existence by definition is. It's not limited by time. You see. Your existence is in time. It's in time. But what happens is, every second is your existence. It's like your existence constantly being unfolded. It's like a new of your existence from second to second. What does it mean when you exist in time? Your exist in time means that every second you're like a new person, because you'll never know when it'll stop. So each second is the totality of your existence. You see? At that point in time, if you choose to follow my will, God says, you have given me the totality of your existence. Because all you are is what you are at the present. You see what I'm saying? The sum total of your true being is what you are right now. Because you have no guarantees that you'll go further. And you have given that up to me. You have You have molded that existence in my name. Hence, you have given me literally the totality of your existence. So God says, the Din says, you have given me the totality of existence, then I give you the totality of existence. You see? And I give you the gift of existence itself. And existence itself is not subject to time, really. It just is. And that's it. So it is a fair trade-off.
Even within Din.
Even in Din. You see what I'm saying? Because it's not 70 years versus a billion years. It's not years or time. It's existence for existence. You give the existence that you have now, which is all you have, but that's you. You give the maximum existence in which you are capable of now. In exchange, God says, I will give you existence. True existence. And there's no end to true existence. You see what I'm saying? God doesn't care the fact that you're not going to be around for more than 70, 80, 90, 100 years. Why? It's not affecting God, because your existence is in time. Your existence is a second-by-second entity. You see, when you give God the gift of your existence for 1 second, you've given it your totality, because that's all you really are, and all you really have, you see. And that's the philosophy of many people. Oh, why should I do this? Who knows if I'll be here tomorrow? You see. That's what the heathen is saying, right? Why should I do this? Live now, for tomorrow you may die. What is that? That means be everything you can be now. Because you have no guarantees that you'll live a minute from now. You see, that's the philosophy. So the Baruch says, if you don't do that, if you follow my will, you will have given what you are in your totality now. So the Din says, I give you full existence. Full existence is without limit. You see. But it's the same trade-off. Okay? Let's go back to the other question. That sounds interesting. But that should tell you the enormity of a mitzvah and a chait. What I just told you is a very important thing. Look at the power of a mitzvah. If you do a mitzvah, one mitzvah is enough to acquire all of Olam Haba. Why? Because in any second of time, you can only be preoccupied with one mitzvah. That one mitzvah is sufficient. It's a statement of your existence at one point in time. That's already equivalent to all of Olam Haba. You see. You see the enormous power of a mitzvah? Every second that you do literally acquires billions and billions of years. One mitzvah can acquire billions and billions of years. If that's the power of a mitzvah, can you imagine the power of a chait now? You now begin to see the enormous power of a chait. So I'm showing you the following, is that when you look at the magnitude of a mitzvah of a chait, it is 10 to the grand scale. One mitzvah has the power of 10 to the million. You see what I'm saying? One chait has the power of 10 to the million. You see what I'm saying? A mitzvah and a chait has the power of existence itself. That's where the magnitude lies. And since that's where the magnitude lies, God doesn't need a billion years of life. You see, He's got that in seconds. Since we're talking about existence itself, in seconds, God already has the magnitudes that He wants. He doesn't need to put you here for the next 100 million years to see what happens. Technically speaking, God can see everything in 1 minute, or whatever it is. How many minutes were given to Adam Rishon? 1. That's all. That's all that's necessary. You see what I'm saying? That's the magnitude. So you see, the Baruch has not deviated from the way he works. Which is what? Which is a vast magnitude. You see, except that we do not realize it. It is not recognizable to us. You see, that in our temporal life, in a life which needs to go by seconds or minutes, or last a couple of years or a couple of decades, we don't see any big numbers. The big numbers is in our actions, is in our power to create olam haba or annihilation. That's where the big numbers are. Yes.
1 year, 5 years.
Who?
Why not 1 year, 5 years?
Why the specific?
Why 2 months, 3 days?
That's. Chazon Ish was only supposed to live for 12 hours. That's right, till the day of Shabbos, and that was the end of it. That was the whole mitzvah was supposed to take 12 hours. Why each of these things is specific is something else. That's a very difficult thing to understand. The exact quantity of time. These things have to do with other things and so on, and it would be much. I don't have a total answer, but even what I do have would take a much longer period of time to be able to discuss and for you to understand the criteria which are used. But that's not relevant, you see. What's relevant here is the measure, you see. The details of that measure is something else, you see. Why would someone get 50 years and somebody get 10 days and this and that? That's something else, you see. But that wasn't the question we asked. That's why when the Rebbeinu Shalom has to save us from Chatonim, you see why there has to be so much pain? You now see why there's a Holocaust? Because if a Chet has such power to clean up a Chet, must require a very, very big what? Cleansing job. You see? The reason why life looks like such an incredible, chaotic aspect of suffering, the reason why life looks like almost like a huge amount of suffering, almost like a madness, is only for one reason. The reason why there's so much pain and there's so much involved is because of what God has in store. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom has in store something which will last without limit in terms of time. You see, the numbers that we deal with are enormous. You see, the amount of pain that we deal with is enormous. Why? Because our actions are incredibly enormous in their ability, what they can do. We don't see that. We don't see our powers. We think we're very small, very limited in ways. Because you do not know how powerful your actions are. You do not see what the ultimate consequences are. So the big numbers do exist. They exist in your activities, and they exist in what God has to do to wipe the slate clean, to save you from your own, annihilation. That's why you're dealing with the pain of a Holocaust, or the pain of a pogrom, or a pain of an inquisition, or the pain of an exile, whatever have you. That's one of the reasons why. Because of the power of a Chet itself. There are other answers to this, but this is one that will suffice more. There are more. Holocaust needs more of an explanation, you see. But that's not what we'll do now. I just want to give you a glimpse of the numbers that we're really dealing with. You see. Okay, I have to make some important announcements here. Yeah.
So how do you respond to the comment that we delayed Mashiach by taking the state of Israel instead of holding out longer and letting the Holocaust bring the Mashiach?
That is a specific opinion which is held by some people, namely the Satmar, certain people, some of those. I personally do not feel that it's true.
What would happen if we didn't have Israel? If we didn't get Israel right after that?
I don't feel that's true, but it's deeper than that also. There's a reason why that opinion must exist. That opinion itself must exist in order for the redemption to occur. You see. But that would be, we'll have to go further on. To answer that question, I have to get the details of the Adamus Yichud and the Gula itself, how it will transpire, and the Choshech which is necessary, and so on. And what's called the progressive movement of the Gula. You have to understand many other things to the way it's developed. It wouldn't be appropriate to really answer that. Just put it this way, that what I'm saying is basically that is not what the case is. That's not what the case is. What God does and what man does are two different things. As far as man is concerned, you see, if man took the land of Israel forcefully. That's one thing. But we have the land of Israel because this was part of history itself. God so did it, you see. We were able to vanquish all those enemies, all those Arabs, because of the tremendous depth of Ishmael. But it's a whole thing. I don't want to go into the...
So what you're saying is that at that specific point, we couldn't have had Mashiach.
You can't prevent the coming of Mashiach, in that sense, in its time. You could prevent it.
There's no trade-off?
No.
No, like sapping away certain...
What God does, God is bringing the time of Mashiach inevitably. There is nothing that man can do to prevent that. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing we can do to delay it?
No. There's nothing you can do to delay it. Not before the ultimate time. There's a certain date set in history, and that date, Mashiach must come by that date.
Right.
There's no way.
What about the hastening of it?
What?
What about the hastening of it?
What you can do is the following. You can hasten it.
So what I'm saying is, was this an opportunity that we blew to hasten it?
Every year is an opportunity.
No, but that's not an answer to the specific question.
The Mashiach technically can come at any point in time.
I agree.
So at any point in time that he does not come, we have...
But we had a stronger power to bring it at that point is what I'm asking.
There are times when we have stronger powers, sometimes we have less. My personal feeling is that we had no power to bring it at that point either. Because what happens is, it's a geometric thing. When the Hanaga Dicha begins to roll, it's like an avalanche. There comes a point in time when it cannot be brought by human bechir anymore. It's an avalanche. It's too much pressure. What?
You think that's where we are?
That's my feeling here. I feel that there's an avalanche going here. The choshech is too big. Is it possible for all of Jews to do tshuva? Could you conceive of that possibility? Of course not. It's impossible. The punishment constructed the world in such a way that living is impossible. Jews can't get together to make a minyan. It's hard enough. Right? Keep one shoe without splitting up and going somewhere else. How are they going to come together and bring the gula? I mean, really, if you want to get down to it, really.
So therefore, it's beyond us in the sense of just the
my sort of thing is it's very difficult things, and I think that there is a certain point in time when it was taken out of our hands already.
Do you know when?
No. But I think my feeling is because it's an avalanche effect. You see, when that happens, to what extent, and so on, these are very difficult things. I don't have a clear. You have to know. It's different. Before we leave, there's several things. I just want to make some important announcements. What do you want to say? The last question. Who?
Time.
Yes.
Who will say the fraction of a second?
Yeah.
The fraction of a second can be 10 to the quadrillion power. Each moment is impossible.
Yes.
Each moment is impossible.
Yes. In a sense. If you look at it from the standpoint of your existence from moment to moment,
and the density that you pack each moment
is incredible. It's
incredible.
Yes, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Incredible.
How much light you can produce,
Every second
could be composed of 10 to the quadrillion fraction.
Well, yeah. What? Yeah. It's an astonishing thing. You don't realize it. I want to make this two announcements, and I don't know how to make the first. The second one is easier. The first. This is the last week in which we can be here. I've been informed that this room this room was the office of one of the people here, and that person was on vacation, and that person was coming back next week. So this is the last time that we will be here. Next week we have to be at our new location. Now, the question is, where is our new location? Okay, that's a good question. Neil Futterman was supposed to have been working on that, and he tells me that our new location will be 79th Street, the shul of Karbach, or the Shmuel of Karbach. Now, I do not know what the address is. Does anyone know what the address of that is?
Between West End and Riverside.
Well, is that enough?
Yes, the big one, and it comes out to the synagogue.
Is on 79th Street?
Yes.
West End and Riverside and North Side.
West End, how is parking? 3 times.
It's not so easy.
Is it hard or?
Yeah, it could be difficult.
It is exactly 305.
It's 305 West 79th?
You could be able to go either on Broadway.
Do you all know how to get there? Do you? Okay, then could you do me a favor? Could you inform your Louis, I think it is? Yes, could you please inform us? And whoever's not here, Neil obviously knows, and so we just have to get out the word so other people who are not here. Can we do that? Okay, so the next time we're meeting at 7 o'clock in the shul. I've never been there. I have no idea what it is. It's a nice place. I need a blackboard, so I think Neil is going to try and arrange a blackboard. I don't know. I think we're going to see if possible. I'll speak to Neil. So that I have to go to Israel. And I will be gone. And this thing, I will be gone from a period of approximately 6 weeks to 8 weeks. Approximately. And that will be in 3 weeks. And then with February 10th will be the last year that I'll give here. Now I intend to come back, you see, and continue with Yeshua. But there will be a gap for approximately that period of time. Now, what I have done, in order, because I feel that the group should be going and so on, in the same way, I have asked someone who's the only other person that can give my type of shiur to substitute my brother. My brother is a twin. He walked in, he probably will not even know the difference. What's your brother last? Who's here last? I knew it was. Truth of the matter is, I am the other Captain. Now, let me just tell you about my brother. Which one's going? Oh, I'm going.
Why are you going to tell him?
Very good. Well, it's a joke. They won't sit there when I was a little kid. What they did when I was in camp, I think I was 7, 8 years old. They switched us. You do different bunks. You know, when you sit with them, they switch us, and the count is never different. So you're right. Why are you telling us? Now, the truth is, my brother does not look exactly like I. He looks very similar to I. He's, I think, a little heavier than I. His voice is exactly the same. And what's that? Who made the table? The table made exactly the same. Okay, so now let me tell you about the style of my brother. Has a certain similar style to myself, not exactly the same. Well, not exactly. There are differences. People have listened to, I think, some people have gone from the shiur. There are differences between two, but he gives very good shiur, very deep shiur. Okay, and he's very good. And what he's going to do, I've asked him to give also, but the question is, what kind of shiur should he give? Okay, and what the question was, do you all want continuation of Hashkafa shiur, or do you want something else?
What's the alternative?
An alternative, maybe. My brother happens to be an excellent grammarian in Hebrew. He wanted to give an 8-week course in Hebrew and how to translate. He could do that too. Another option is, I can ask my brother to construct a course in 8 weeks that you will be able to translate Chumash. Yes. You'll be able to read Chumash. What? Well, he'll work with you. He'll develop a course. He'll give you the details. But that's the problem. He will, that's one possibility. You can teach a course in biblical Hebrew for 8 weeks. My brother can also. Let me answer. The other thing that he has suggested. I don't think that's a good.
Pick it up again.
I tell you what, I was thinking of that, but the truth of the matter is, I think that would be very poor.
Yeah. Do you think it's Ramchal, but something?
What my brother can do, and I bet I really two choices which I think best. He can do one of two things. He himself has his own shiur, and my brother has suggested he will give a mini series of 6 to 8 weeks on Hashkafa things, but what he talks about. He will talk about Yom Tovim, all the Yom Tovim. He will speak many, many deep things, but not. See, I asked him not to do what I'm doing because I. Well, if you notice what I'm doing is I go to Hashkafa. Wait a minute.
Holidays coming up.
Yes. What I do, if you'll notice, I am going to Hashkafa in a very systematic building. I don't want my brother to do that because it's not the same thing. So what he can do, he is offered to do all the Yom Tovim of the year.
Right. Yeah.
Rosh Hashanah back all the way down into the inner depths of it.
Right.
So you've got that. He's offered to do also, he's offered to give some shiur on meditation and other, all extra things and so on, which are very good, that won't necessarily interfere. But it can be very solid.
Yeah.
Is the group agreeable to that?
Yeah.
The reason why I don't want to stop the group because I think the momentum would be lost.
Right.
And I think it's
Just to get everybody
All the
back.
Yom Tovim, if you can do one on meditation,
he will do that. He will.
Yeah, that's what I said.
There are definitely people here who would like to do the Hebrew thing. But it's all such as being kicked out because of you guys speaking Hebrew, and we're not getting a choice.
I don't think we ever.
You should present it.